Thank you so much once more. You helped us get to 200,000 subscribers. Yous are all wonderful and deadly, and I'll give you a couple of weeks before I start pushing for the next one. Don't you worry about that. But it's coming. But no, right now we are going to be covering Star Trek Picard's latest episode, Hide and Seek. You know how it's going to go. We're going to go through all the ups we liked and then all the downs that we didn't. Let's get straight to it. Big episode this week. So this is the first part of our season finale. Although all of the episodes have kind of run into each other, so technically it's the 9th part of our season finale of Star Trek Picard Season 2. Hide and Seek deals with what's going on in the chateau. It seems to more or less wrap up the storyline of Jurati and the Borg Queen, and it leaves our, intrepid insurrectionists stuck in the past by the end of the episode. So we do have an awful lot that we need to get through in Season 2, Episode 10, but for now, I thought this was a largely solid episode. I thought there was an awful lot in this that I thought was very, very interesting, very, very crucial to know a lot of this stuff as well. And it's some of the criticisms I'm going to have is that this is stuff we needed to know earlier. My first up of the episode goes to this new territory that the writers have taken the Borg Collective into. Now, I think this is going to be something that's going to prove a little bit divisive, because this idea of a collective that legitimately is looking for peace and looking for coexistence in the galaxy is completely anathema to the Borg collective that we've known in the past. But it does also give a little bit more insight into the Borg that come through in episode 1, the Stargazer. Now, from that episode until now, every week, people are messaging with, I think that's Jurati, I think that's Jurati. I think that's a pretty good bet that was Jurati in the Borg Queen garb on the bridge of the Stargazer. Now that means we still need to get there, so there's still going to be a little bit of timey-wimey stuff going on, which makes an awful lot of sense. In fairness, we do temporal loops, that's all good. Now, what it doesn't explain is why that particular queen told Jean-Luc to look up. I have thoughts about that one, but very much the interplay between Jurati and the Queen in this episode, and also just massive props to Alison Pill and Annie Wershing in this season. They were the double team MVPs of this season. I think that goes pretty much without question. Everyone has been particularly good, but they have really been a head and shoulders. Yeah, first contact joke. Sorry. They've been a head and shoulders above everyone else this season. I really like this understanding they come to in each other, because it takes someone of Jurati's experience, her loneliness, her search for her collective, to get someone like the Queen to open their eyes. This is where there's going to be, I think, a bit of difference, because some people will be like, the Queen is never going to see this version of a future. They're never going to accept the fact that we can have individuality that will build to the whole, as opposed to just being a part of perfection. There was fear in the Queen's performance, not so much that she was projecting, I am afraid, but she's so dug into her ways that the idea of changing that itself is almost as terrifying as anything else. It's something that I don't think Jean-Luc would be able to get her to see. I certainly don't think Seven would have been able to get her to see. I think it takes Jurati. I think this was an excellent direction, because also, and this is something that we've been talking about in-house as well, like, where do you go with the collective after Endgame? So after the last episode of Voyager, the next appearance of the Borg came in the Enterprise Season 2 episode, Regeneration. Now, rather than advancing the story of the Borg, they went all the way back to the beginning. Well, not the origins, but they went back to Starfleet's first encounter with the Borg, thanks to timey-wimey. And it succeeded in making the Borg a genuinely frightening threat again. And that works because that was back in time. You don't need to worry about the future. You don't need to worry about what's going to happen. I thought that was excellent. The next appearance after that is Picard Season 1. Whether or not you think Control becomes the collective, I personally don't think it does, but I understand why people do. But yes, Picard Season 1 is the next time you see a version of the Borg, but even they're individuals, so there's a slight update in the look of them, but no, then you get Picard Season 2. So we still have not really seen what's become of the collective past Endgame. If this is the next step in their evolution, I'm quite okay with this. Still need to, as I said, we still need to get back to the Stargazer, so there is going to be something happens along the way, because, you know, self-destruct, not so much fun if you're standing on the Stargazer, so that has to be addressed. But as it stands, massive up from me this week. Now, I now want to address a down. So when Seven and Raffi are preparing themselves for their seemingly suicide mission run across the fields of Chateau Picard, Seven describes kind of what happened when she got back from the Delta Quadrant, that after Voyager she did try and join Starfleet, but they wouldn't take her. That's a down. One, why on earth would Starfleet not allow somebody with Seven's knowledge and experience in? Two, they'd no problem with letting Icheb in? I'm afraid that's a plot hole. That's not a logic gap, that's actually a plot hole. We've seen that Icheb became a member of Starfleet, so why wouldn't Seven? If the argument is that, oh, well, she was a drone for longer, then, okay, what's the cutoff point? You know? Like, technically, Icheb spent years as a drone. Now, he was in a maturation chamber, sure, but... So I'm afraid that's a down. That's just a full-on plot hole there, I'm afraid. Another up. The emergency combat hologram, Elnor. I am going to go on record and say this now. If Prime Elnor is to remain dead, I am fine with this being how they bring Evan Evagora back into Picard, because I thought he was fantastic. He has all the memories of Elnor. You know, he is somewhat indestructible. Yeah, I am here for it. I'm totally fine with this because, you know, he's still going to live on, probably live a longer life now. And I'm totally fine with this. I thought it was a very good way of bringing him back. It gives Raffi that moment of honesty and closure, and Elnor is able to say, my last memories, or the last memories of Elnor on that body bed, they were of love, not of blame. Such a moment of pathos, something that is badly, badly needed for Raffi as a character. I did think that the way they introduced how she dealt with Elnor last week, I thought was a little bit late in the game, but then I do like that they've addressed it and basically resolved it so quickly, because Raffi's had enough pain. Give the woman a break. So really, really, really enjoyed the emergency combat hologram this week. And yeah, just same as you would in, you know, with the Co-op Malat. Don't go up against him. Choose to live. James Callis, up. I mean, I'm cosplaying as Morris Picard today. I said to you, I was like, oh no, the one thing I don't want to do is I don't want to lose or like only have James Callis once. And I said, look, he's playing Morris in flashback, so we're probably not going to see him again. We saw him again, that's enough. Baltar, God, I love you, Baltar. As he was before, great, and we're getting a little bit more depth to him. We see that he really, really does care about his family, and that is a different portrayal, not from the last episode, but from, say, the depiction of Morris as a father figure throughout the next generation as well. It's important because no character should ever be two-dimensional, and this character he's very important in terms of Picard's makeup, but he's obviously only been on screen once in Tapestry, and then the two James Callis appearances. I think there's enough of a three-dimensional character there that it's so important. Now, I do, however, have a down for this breakfast scene, and the down is, it's the seeming, they missed an opportunity to mention Robert Picard. Now, they did in the pilot state that Robert was at school. They did say that Robert likes to work in the fields with his father. I feel that this would have been the perfect occasion if there was even to be a family portrait or family picture, because it does now feel like they went in the pilot, nah, Robert's fine. He's fine. Just don't worry about it. He's alive or whatever. It would have just been nice because family seems to be a very important theme in this storyline. You could have had Robert blaming Jean-Luc for the death of their mother, because unfortunately Jean-Luc opened that door. Now, of course, it was not Jean-Luc's fault in any way, but you could have set up this tension between the brothers that would then retroactively lead back into the episode family. So I'm afraid that's a down just as a missed opportunity. Still, the scene overall, the storyline overall was an up. Down is the constant changing back to memories. That was... It hurt the pace of the episode. I thought, you have, how do we get through this room? Wait a minute, hold on. There's a secret door over here. Hold on. We're gonna go this way. It was like, come on. Actually now, I'm gonna retract this down. That was unexpected. I'm retracting this down because the content of this story was so important that I think I will allow the fact that it did hurt the pacing of the episode. I do mean that. I feel it was essential to know a lot of this. We've been more or less teased with this storyline for the whole season, and I don't think there was any great surprise in how the story ended in the death of Yvette Picard. I think the only real unknown was that Jean-Luc unlocks the door. I'm going to give an up to this storyline. I don't think it was handled perfectly. I think there are some issues, and there are definitely tropes in it. But if we take, for example, the fact that Morris locks her in the bedroom. Now, it's his way of locking her away and protecting her. So many examples of how people suffering from mental health issues are just locked away, they're ignored for their own good. And quite often it is exactly the opposite of what they need. Now, this episode does present it as a locked door may have prevented her from taking the action that she did, and that Jean-Luc unlocking the door allowed her to do what she did when she did. But I think it's the when is the important. The way they've portrayed Yvette Picard, I feel there didn't seem to be any hope for this character. I think this was an inevitability. So Morris locking the door was simply a delaying tactic. It doesn't make it right, it doesn't make it wrong, which is, I feel, a lot of the times when you look at a situation like this where someone takes their own life, you constantly go, what if? And the answer is you can never know. What if Morris hadn't locked the door? What if Jean-Luc hadn't unlocked the door? What if Robert had been there? What if? I think it's clever. I think it's heavy. It's a painful storyline, and it helps us to understand how Jean-Luc grows to such maturity so early on in life. Now, it's still not perfect. We know what happened with his young friends in Tapestry. He ends up needing an artificial heart. No one gets it right first time around. This was a hard storyline, and I applaud Star Trek Picard for actually taking this on. As I say, it wasn't handled perfectly. I don't think it is possible to handle this kind of a storyline perfectly, but I thought it was well done, and I think it was essential to know this for Jean-Luc as a character. Now, in the rest of the episode, we have Rios gets taken off the board fairly quickly, which has pretty much been a theme for Rios this season. And unfortunately, although we love Teresa, we love Ricardo, how many ups have I given these characters at this point? It does lead me to a bit of a down. Talon turns up. They obviously contact her between episodes. She helps them because they beam in using her technology, and Rios is shot and he's sent back to her base of operations. And we're led to believe that there he figures out how to use her DNA coded weapon, switch it to his DNA, and organize that by the time he gets back by the end of the episode. I think that's a little bit of a stretch. It was a fun moment to, kind of screw over Soong, but that's a down for me. I think that was a little bit like, that was a bit too convenient. Overall, I think Rios, Teresa, and Ricardo, I think they make a fantastic team, but I think that storyline has been dragged out a little bit. I feel, and this is maybe the harshest thing I'll say about season 2, out of 9 episodes, I think we have about 5 episodes of story, and we've had a little bit of just dragging it out a little bit. A lot of Rios' story has been, you could have done that maybe in 1 or 2 episodes. Raffi and Seven, do they even have 1 episode worth of story? The big one obviously is concentrating on JL and Jurati, and that's fine. So this was another episode of Rios gets a bit to do, and they seem to be setting up. They set up a line of like, I've got to leave you, you've got to stay, I've got to go. Oh, my ship's gone. Oh, I guess I'm staying. So I don't know where this is going, whether he's going to remain behind or whatever. It's a bit muddy. So the down is actually for how quickly they figured out how to use a DNA-coated weapon, but overall, it's not been handled fantastically this season. I do have an up for Brent Spiner this week. I thought Adam Soong was nicely sinister. The fact that he's walking around with that sinister music playing over him as well. I love the fact that, he is a scientist, and he makes the point, the scientist doesn't follow the rat through the maze. The scientist goes to the end. And yeah, figured it out. So that actually worked really, really well for me this week. And I like this new kind of he's so confident because he's been shown a future where he's, so powerful. He's another prick of a Soong, but as opposed to. So yeah, this worked for me this week. I do have a down. So I do, as I say, I love the fact that Jurati and the Queen have more or less merged by the end, which convinces the Queen to save Seven. Now it takes a bit of assimilation, absolutely fine. Down, they gave her the exact same implants as before. And I mean, you could have come up with a different way of giving Seven her implants back. That's all I'm saying. This was that's oddly specific. I have a large stomach wound, so an implant over my left eye will save me. There is one moment in this episode, sorry, I have to bring reference to this. Twitter user @FishMonkeyHat, which is an amazing Twitter name by the way, just had us in stitches laughing. So when the La Sirena crew are hunkered down, taking cover from the hail of bullets that are being fired by 60s Batman villains, there is a grenade thrown in, and someone, Talon says, "Close your eyes," and as FishMonkeyHat makes the point of, "Oh no, it's a flashback grenade," because he immediately goes back to thinking about when he was a kid again. I'm sorry, that was absolutely hilarious. That was brilliant. The episode then ends with the revelation that there must be two Renees. There must be a Renee who lives and a Renee who dies. Now, if we are to take this as a metaphor, then perhaps it is the inner fear of Renee Picard that must be killed so that she can continue on the Europa mission. If we are to take it literally, we might see Renee Picard of the 2024s out there having a great time, and nephew Renee Picard having a barbecue. Am I evil? Maybe a little bit. Maybe a little bit. Now, would you kindly join me at Cetacean Observations? Alrighty, now, one of the first ones we see is when Talon arrives, she's holding a Jatvash rifle. Down. This is 2024. If that was, which it is, this is the Jatvash rifle, how did she get that? And if it is just, okay, yeah, she's a Romulan, why in 2024 does she have the same technology that they will have in 2401? Down. Fractal code Jurati says she uses to lock out the main computer, which I thought was brilliant. That's a callback, obviously, to Data's fractal encryption code from Star Trek First Contact. We have a mobile emitter on robot, I was going to say, on holographic Elnor's arm. There is then one of the coolest Easter eggs that I've seen since doing the ups and downs for all of Lower Decks, Discovery, Prodigy, and Picard. They have made Doug Drexler's NX-01 refit canon. It is sitting on Picard's desk as a young boy. It's got the star drive section. I am delighted. This is now canon. This is in Star Trek. We've been waiting for this. This is from the unfortunately proposed but never seen Star Trek Enterprise Season 5. Let this be a teaser for something that is coming. I got a bit excited about that one. Now, in that same scene, we have a model of a Miranda-class starship, and we also have a Promelian battlecruiser ship in a bottle that we saw in Picard's office earlier in the season. Now, we finally have a reference to Star Trek Voyager in this episode when Seven and Raffi are talking about Seven's time back from the Delta Quadrant, and also we get a name drop of Admiral Janeway. Now, funny thing is that Seven says, Admiral Janeway, she threatened to resign if I wasn't made a member of Starfleet. Potential spoiler for Prodigy? She doesn't. Elnor gets his sword back. Now, we get a name drop of the episode Hope and Fear. That was the last episode of Season 4 of Star Trek Voyager. That is the episode that sees the introduction of the USS Dauntless and also the character of Arturus, who treats the Borg, his species have been avoiding the Borg forever and ever and ever until the war with Species 8472 ended, their species were assimilated, and he wants to hold the crew of the Voyager responsible. There's a lot of discussion about Seven's journey into being an individual in that episode, so I think that is not an accidental reference here. There is a beautiful Easter egg in this episode where Picard says that he used to dream of his mother as an older woman meeting him for tea. This is a callback to season 1 of The Next Generation, the episode where no one has gone before, where he sees a hallucination of his mother, where he sits down and has tea with her. That is a beautiful callback. There is a theory posited by the wonderful Chris Thompson that Yvette's discussion of stars dying and their light fading is a callback to last week's episode where Q describes what he's like in terms of his own dying, is that he is just fading. He doesn't get brighter the way stars do before they die. It does feel like a companion piece between the two. Now, there are actually two that I want to address from last week as well, because one was perfect. Now, hands in the air, I do not catch everything. This was caught by Twitter. Recall Chen was written in several places in graffiti in last week's episode. Chen is the governor who was named all the way back in Deep Space Nine's episodes past tense. There's so many references to those episodes. So that was a really clever catch, folks. And also from last week's episode, Corey is using Microsoft's HoloLens visor. Now that's important because if you check out the video that we just did on the real life EMH, you'll see why that's important. I've really got to start catching things on the first go again. So, I mean, it's clearly a Romulan tricorder. All right, clearly a Romulan tricorder. Okay, am I even the right man for this job anymore? The answer is yes. Yes, I am. So, I'm here to tell you about the schedule for next week. So we have both Star Trek Picard and we have Star Trek Strange New Worlds are happening next week. The first thing I want to say is, everyone who will not be able to watch Strange New Worlds next week, believe me, I feel that frustration. And I am sorry. Okay, it is ridiculous. We are not happy about this. The fact that we're still waiting with 1 week to go, it's a Discovery all over again. Paramount, please, get yourself together and help us out here. Now, we are going to be covering Strange New Worlds on the channel, so we will make sure that everything is tagged with Star Trek Strange New Worlds, hashtag SNW or hashtag Strange New Worlds, so that you can mute those and stay away from spoilers, okay? Now, for everyone who will be joining us for Ups and Downs next week, here's how it's going to happen. Our wonderful editor, Chris Thompson, has done this strange thing with his mind control powers to actually get a little bit of time off. So, the wonderful editor, Tom Finn, is going to be editing Picard Ups and Downs for us next week. Now, that will come out as usual on Thursday evening. Now, we will obviously be releasing Strange New Worlds Ups and Downs. That will be dropping on Friday. Chris thought he could run, but he couldn't run that far. He will be back editing Strange New Worlds for us. So, that's how it's going to work. Thursday, we're going to have Picard. Friday, we're going to have Strange New Worlds. We will do our absolute, we will tag everything. So, everyone who cannot watch the show, please mute those hashtags, okay? And everyone who can watch the show, please include those hashtags in your posts on social media. All right, let's be mindful of spoilers, everyone. You're all awesome. We look forward to seeing you. We are so excited for Strange New Worlds, and we're very excited for the finale of Star Trek Picard as well. We look forward to seeing you there. Live long and prosper. Thanks a million.